Good afternoon and welcome to our Education Equity Advisory Committee meeting of the Tigard-Tualatin School District. Today is Monday, March 6th. We don't have any new members this time, so I want to welcome you all back. Thank you for your attendance. It's going to be a very packed agenda, lots to talk about. So right now, let's go ahead and bring the meeting to order. Do we have a motion?
Yeah, make motion to bring the meeting to order.
Motion seconded. Thank you. Okay. And now we're going to move into our previous meeting minutes, just to read, review, and approve. That was sent out in email. I believe we all had a chance to go over those, and if you haven't, now it's a good time to just take another look at those minutes.
And it also looks like we included the review and define that Zinnia took those notes from in the last meeting too.
I see a couple more members looking over the notes.
I have one slight edit. I don't know if it matters. It's the Celeste Brennan, 2 children at Bridgeport. It should be Byram. Just if you want to track the schools correctly.
Okay, which one was that? What did you say?
The minutes from January 30th, the second bullet point with my name.
Ah,
The children are at Byram, not Bridgeport.
thank you.
Any motion to approve?
Yeah, after we made that update, motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I second.
Second. Motion has been approved and seconded. So we're going to touch on our unfinished business from the last time we met. We were going to discuss the Atlas Protocol and the team presentations for equity audit review. There were 3 teams that we wanted to hear from with regard to the equity audit and hear about the progress they've made on their charge. Those teams were the racially and linguistically diverse workforce, academic outcome group, and all team, and also the engagement, attendance, discipline, and referral data. We're planning to invite them to our next meeting, and we'll have a round table where all of us can hear from those groups. We're going to disperse the team member, the committee members in a round table format, and we'll hear from them and bring our learnings, first thought, second thought, and the 4 C's back to the group to discuss. Okay. Any questions about any additional unfinished business or about those points that I just discussed?
Yeah, point of clarification. A point of clarification for the roundtables, will that be at one of the 2 dates listed here?
Yes, that's an excellent question. One of the other topics of tonight, we were going to talk about subcommittees. And what we really want to do is get everyone involved in the work that this committee is doing. And one of those subcommittees would be meeting to discuss when we can best fit in these groups to discuss about their progress and what they're doing and what meeting date they should participate in, given what we have to cover. So what I'll do after tonight's meeting is send out an email to all of our committee members to see what committees they want to be on, and then we can start beginning that work in a big way. And everyone has a voice and everyone's involved. I think that's absolutely crucial and important, right?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right, and now Jacob is going to discuss the next point, which is a budget committee member selection. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Brad. Yeah, so as we've discussed in previous meetings, one of the requirements for the Educational Equity Advisory Committee is that one of us is on the budget committee. So in the packets that were handed out today is the application for the budget committee. And the hope was that today we would nominate a member to serve on the budget committee. One thing to note, though, I'm seeing at the application that it looks like it still has the old dates on it. So I want to clarify that. I believe the correct dates for the budget committee are May 24th, May 31st, and June 7th. So the application here looks like the first meeting would be tomorrow, but it's actually going to be May 24th. And my understanding is that there is one guaranteed meeting. So it would be May 24th. That would be the meeting. And then if they need another one, it would be the following Wednesday. And if they need another one, it would be the Wednesday after that.
Vice Chair, can you say the dates just one more time?
Sure. May 24th, May 31st, and June 7th. And again, those are consecutive Wednesdays. I don't know the time, but I'm assuming roughly this time, around 5:30-ish, and we would be here. Is that correct?
Yes, typically.
Yeah, typically they would be here. Okay. Oh, yeah, sure. Go ahead, Nase. And then one note, as far as the requirements to be on the committee, it does say that, well, at least it's asking, are you a registered voter in the district? I guess I'm not sure if that means it's an actual requirement to be a registered voter. So I guess my question there is whether or not students would be able to participate on it. I don't know the answer to that question. Like Dr. McCall or Zinnia, do either of you know? Okay.
I don't think that would mean a student, but we can get clarification for that.
Okay. I mean, the hope would be to get someone nominated today because we need to notify the committee so that the person can be presented to the board next week, is my understanding. So we would need the application filled out by the end of the week. So with that being said, I mean, do we have anybody present that would like to serve on the budget committee? And if so, feel free to raise your hand and put your name in the ring. Henry would like to. And that would be pending, like if the student can serve on the budget committee.
I'm gonna find out.
Okay, Dr. McCall is gonna look into that. In case it turns out that a student wouldn't be able to, well, I guess I shouldn't assume that a student isn't a registered voter. Students can be registered voters if they are 18. Are you a registered voter? Yeah, oh, okay, perfect. And that answers, and I think that would answer the question then. My apologies. Oh, that's right. It is on your laptop. All right. Well, that answers that question then. Okay. And I do think that does it. All right. Does anybody want to nominate Henry? Well, I will go ahead and nominate Henry to serve on the budget committee.
I second that.
Awesome. Seconded. Cool. All those in favor, say yay.
Aye.
Aye. Perfect. All right. Thank you very much, Henry.
Henry, you have the pleasure of filling out the application.
Awesome. All right, so on to the next item on the agenda, just solidifying the last remaining dates for our committee. We already have the next one on the calendar, which is on April 3rd. We've already confirmed that one. So we have 2 more to keep up with the every 4 weeks pace that we agreed to. When we looked at the calendar to make sure we're not conflicting with board meetings, turns out that May 1st and June 5th are the optimal Mondays for us to convene. So wanted to put that out there. And if that's a major issue for many people, we could look at other dates, but as long as everybody's okay with those, I think we'll stick with those. So it looks like I think everybody is good with those dates. Cool. All right, so the next meetings after that will be May 1st and June 5th. All right, moving right along. Lots of topics. See if we can get through this whole entire agenda. Okay, on to number 5. Yes. Yes, yes, please put those on the calendar alongside the other meetings. Thank you. All right, so item number 5. Round table continuous improvement plans that are presented to the school board. So Zinnia informed Chair Dorsey and I of a interesting opportunity, or at least hopeful opportunity. You were going to look into it, where schools will be presenting to the board during work sessions their EASH plans. Right. And so that is one of our tasks, right, is to review the EASH plans of schools. And so this would be a good opportunity, since we have only 3 meetings left for this committee. Let's try and tackle more work where we can. So there could be an opportunity for committee members to show up to these work sessions so that we can listen to the EASH plans being presented. So that will be our opportunity to learn about the EASH plans. Zinnia, do you want to provide some more detail on this opportunity?
Yes, Dr. McCall, we were wondering if we could have EEAC members participate in the roundtable sessions that is happening next week on March 13th. And so I know I had tagged our cabinet members to see if that was a possibility, but I haven't yet got a response back. So that was one of the wonderings, to see if we could have some members join the roundtable so that we won't have to have our administrators come to another separate roundtable, but going into the current roundtable that was present.
On our cabinet meeting, a standing agenda, so, and that is tomorrow, we will get confirmation. And I hear the request is to have EEAC, some members join the March roundtable. And so we will confirm that tomorrow.
It will be all of the roundtables, so
So
that
that's what so
the rest of the roundtables.
Which there's 2 more,
Two
correct?
more.
There's one
Yeah.
next Monday, and then don't know the date of the next,
I think
the following one.
the next one is in May, or
Yes.
I think it's in May.
What time are those held?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock here.
Mhm. 5 to 6 typically. So I think typically we have enough runway to be able to bring that to our cabinet standing agenda. So I think that's still on the docket, but we can, I wonder if maybe even for this conversation, who would be available to participate for those, for the March 13th one, then we can send the invitation when we get confirmation tomorrow.
Mhm.
So that we don't have to wait. I think if we can determine that, that would be great. And while you pose that question, Vice Chair DeGraw, I think we could also, I can also find the last roundtable date as well to share.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, if you can find that last date. So, and it's also my understanding that for the purposes of these types of roundtables, that committee members that show up, I believe we would just be there listening. Like we're not there to like ask questions and that type of stuff. We're just listening.
Mhm.
So, go ahead, Senior.
So it is March 13th and May 22nd. So March 13th, Alberta Ryder, Mary Woodward, Tualatin Middle School, Byram, and Tigard High will be hosting the roundtables. And then for May, it will be Deer Creek, Hazelbrook, Tualatin High School, Charles F. Tigard, Tigard-Tualatin Virtual Academy, Durham, and Tualatin Elementary. And I can add that to our notes as well so that you have that. But those are the roundtable hosts and dates. And the time will be 5 to 6.
Okay, cool. So for the purpose of next week and presenting it to the cabinet, committee members show by hands, who would like to attend if we are allowed to. You guys are okay. So Raya, Marta, Celeste, Henry, Nina, Brad, and myself. It's no worries. Exactly. We are all doing a lot and we all appreciate each other's work. So there's never any pressure to do more, right? Awesome. All right. So once that's been presented and if the cabinet approves, will you be sending an email out later this week? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Awesome, thank you.
Is there a limit on how many people you guys want there, or?
That's a good
Like-
question.
I don't know yet, but I think that's a good question I can ask. Because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there are 5 groups. I think that'll be fine.
That would just mean that it would be 2 EEAC committee members at each of the 5 tables.
Cool. Awesome. Well, we will look forward to seeing that email, and I'm pretty sure I would kind of expect that we'd be able to join in and listen. So we'll wait for that email. Awesome. And then, so on to the next topic then, and probably a pretty quick one regarding the SROs presenting to our committee. Similar to what we discussed with unfinished business, we will look to finding a date in one of our upcoming meetings for SROs to come and talk to us and present. Cindy, do you want to provide a little bit more detail on that?
Yes, I'm happy to. So for some background information around the SRO presentation, and my partner in this work, our administrator, Jarvis Gomez, is a part of the conversation as well. But so a few years ago, we had gone through a very extensive community process to review our SRO program. And then from there, we had adopted a new intergovernmental agreement of the focus of our SROs. And so last year, there was a committee, an SRO task force committee that came together, reviewed the data, reviewed the progress of the new intergovernmental agreement. And this year we made some shifts where we had asked our SROs to be out in the community, the student community and staff, to get insight from them around what they want to see from our SROs, what are the things that are top of mind for them. And so the ask here would be, in the intergovernmental agreement, there should be some touch points around the progress that that we have within that new scope of work. And so since a few of the members are now part of the EEAC, we were hoping that we could present here for the work. And so some information that would be shared, it would be referrals to the juvenile justice system, supports that are being offered by our SROs, and what they've learned from the community as they've worked on some of those listening sessions that our culturally responsive liaisons and coordinators have supported in hosting in the various schools. And then from there, we will be hosting some community discussions as well. So that's another opportunity for other EEAC members to join, for the broader community to come together and share their insights around the SRO program and the work that is being done in their schools. They'll also give some updates on safety, because that has been one of the big concerns in the different conversations that we've been a part of. And so they'll also give a report on that. So I think what's the task and ask for this committee would be to identify when you would want to have the SRO presentation.
Thank you, Xenia. Yeah, and so as far as the dates go, again, we have 3 more meetings left. And I think the goal we already established for the next meeting is to have the teams present from the equity audit. So, and I think we would like to save the very last meeting to help prepare for the report that's going to be presented to the board. So I think that really just leaves the, what did we say? The May 1st meeting. So, I guess I nominate that I recommend that we go with May 1st to have the SROs present. Cool.
I second that.
Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
All right,
We're moving right.
moving right along. I figured we'd get through some of these pretty quick, so that's good.
Yes.
Yes, this next one is also for Zinnia to speak to, and it sounds like a really awesome opportunity for this committee. So I'm looking forward to hearing about this.
Okay, so this agenda item is talking about the $100,000 that was advocated by students for the extracurricular activity funds. So the problem that we've had recently has been because of, I think, the level of overwhelm, I think, within our system recently. We've the last couple of years, we were able to have this funding source, but not a lot of staff and students had applied for these resources because there are some stipulations connected to this funding resource. So our students a few years ago had advocated for elimination of pay-to-play fees for high school. And although we don't know yet the outcome and efficacy of that change idea to increase participation in sports, we have learned that there are still needs that have come up with that. And I can actually, at our next meeting, bring over the report of what has been used and what hasn't been used thus far. But this $100,000 was supposed to be an addition specifically focused on extracurricular activities that were outside of just sports. But there were still grant applications or proposal applications that connected with sports because there weren't enough coaches or supports to support that increase in diversity. And so we're finding out some information about that process of where there's still need, but the process has been a little bit difficult because instead of having an ongoing committee, we've had to recruit. And then by the time that, the board has their student reps who are a part of that extracurricular equity funds committee, it takes about a month to get them acclimated and trained. And then having them review the proposal has been a little bit cumbersome. So it kind of has deterred, applicants for the grants. Whereas if we had a set committee here that is already formed, we wouldn't have to go through that gap of recruiting and then retraining. We would just have the committee that would be part of the function. So the proposal here is that instead of having to have that gap, if EEAC was the extracurricular equity funds committee as well, then we would have a set committee that could review the proposals and return them in a timely manner. And it would be, I think more functional than it has been. So that's the ask here.
I have access to the high school participation data and then the notes that you took at the January's work session. You want me to send that to you?
Or do you want to share it
Yeah, I can
briefly?
share it with everyone.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool.
And then maybe even talk through it if you
Cool.
want to.
Yeah. Let me send that out real quick.
And while you're working on that, there is an agenda item later that talks about the committee email, where then you can also have it all in one area so that we can just go and have a Google Drive to access.
While Owen's getting that stuff ready, Zinni, do you know roughly how many applications there were?
I do. I actually have it here. I can give a quick summary of what we have so far. So this year, oh, here it is. Okay. So far we have had 5 proposals, one for marching band. That was for initial amount was for $30,000, but the revised amount was for 19, and that got approved. We have one for JV volleyball that was approved. And then I think National Honor Society was approved. And then the other 2 are still in review, and those were for 10,000 and 4,000. And then the volleyball proposal was for $5,000, and the National Honor Society was for $3,500. So we have a little over $50,000 left within the equity funds. But that would contribute to the what Chair Dorsey had asked around training, so that we would train. There's a bias training for review, and then training on how to give feedback using the 4Cs protocol.
So I sent out the link, and if you want to find the data, it's in the bottom of the impact of elimination of pay-to-play fees section, and it's split by high school. And then if you don't mind me talking about kind of like what we were talking about, a little quick overview. Basically, we've noticed that there hasn't been a substantial increase of basically an increase of students from both cut or non-cut sports. And I think there was a bunch of different reasons why we were talking about that, different barriers. One of the main ones are for sports, there's still a lot of financial impact to get the equipment needed, not the pay-to-play fees. So I know, for example, that I was talking about, in order to play baseball, you need to get a $100 glove, $200 bat, $100 helmet, just to name a few. And if you're some positions like catchers, pitchers, you need even more equipment. And then one thing we were also talking about too is in students who go to high school and want to play a sport can't just walk into a sport day one and feel confident and comfortable. You need to start practicing in middle school to feel confident to play on a high school level. And those also have big financial barriers and impacts. And we were discussing too, what did I miss?
No, I think you did. I think you did a great job describing some of these things. I think some of the other conversations that came up during the time that the proposal was brought up was many of the community members had shared that we might need to look a little bit more upstream. So meaning looking at, earlier on in middle school and even like elementary, getting kids involved in some of these extracurricular activities, and then extending that into that feeder system, right, for high school. And so those, I think when we talk about policy ACC, or the Educational Equity and Racial Justice Policy, one of the things that we are tasked to do is to take a look at access barriers and whole well-rounded education. And so, taking a look at the last 2 years' data would be important. So even reviewing that list that Owen had shared would be important. And also the question was, how can we make more intentional moves towards recruitment and reaching out. So one of the things that we learned in this process was Tualatin High has is it an athletics equity coordinator? And so they did a lot of the reaching out to students and families, and then made that connection then with like our family partnership advocate to support with some of the funding needs that were the barriers that were highlighted by Owen. And, you know, the other question was, how do we find those that are furthest from justice and furthest from opportunity and do a targeted effort to support some of that work? So some of the things that we've learned recently has been our students who qualify under the McKinney-Vento Act, students, youth navigating homelessness or houselessness. They have a lot of barriers in being able to access, you know, some of these extracurricular activities, not only from some of the fees standpoint, but also transportation and so forth. And so how do we maybe take a more focused look on how do we support students that might need that type of intentional outreach? So those were the things that came up. Was there anything else that I might have missed?
No, I think you covered it well. One thing I've noticed, this is super kind of my own perspective, but spring sports that has low barriers to get into, like skill wise, but like you don't need as much previous knowledge. As of this year, I've seen a big increase. So for example, girls tennis last year, there were only 39 students. This year, as of right now, it's not in the table yet because it's outdated, but there's almost 50 girls playing. Boys track 68 last year. This year, maybe close to 100. So the numbers for spring this season, and those are the only two sports that I know, but they are trending in the right direction.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just think I learned this recently. I think you've made the great point of being proactive with elementary school students and giving them the extracurricular opportunities. I think Bridgeport is the only elementary that does after school activities. I could be wrong about that though. Yeah. There's other elementaries. Okay, so never mind.
I know CFT doesn't have anything after school.
Okay.
I don't know the others.
When you talk about the feeder thing, when we're talking about sports, I know that there are like outside sport facility or, you know, folks that operate. I don't know if we've been intentional. We're talking about being intentional around supporting those folks so they know that, you know, they can hire more coaches or they can have more people to be on in those spaces so we can utilize those things. Cause I know for football, like we have little football folks that be showing up over there. And then for the dance team or the cheer team, there's little ones that are showing up. So I don't know if that could be an intentional reach there too as well, but in other forms, theater.
Tiger Little League is a huge one in their JVO program. So that's kinder through JVO, feeds straight into high school. Tiger competitive hoops, my little brother's in there right now too, and it's straight feeder into high school. So these are definitely, and that's just on the Tiger side. I'm sure on the Tualatin side, there's community groups like that too. So maybe that's something, a good starting point for sure.
Okay. I think that what was said is really important because those were some things that the community members had brought up around. I think we might need to start a little bit younger, but also inform families. So the other things, and I again, trying to connect the dots around our system. We have one of our TTSC staff that's working with I think our city partners with the parks and rec. And I know that they were wondering about this conversation with our community partners, and how do we get younger students more connected to some of these resources in these extracurricular activities. So I think those are really great insight. And my wondering related to this agenda item was, would you be open to having this be the committee that reviews the proposals? And for this proposal, it's not directly connected to pay to play, although I shared some of the insight, and in the document that Owen had shared, there are examples of the proposals and the awards that have been given from last year and this year. But for this one in particular, it's about other extracurricular activities. We had done a listening session with various students within our district, and we wanted to understand why students didn't participate. And it was really interesting because some root cause of that was not feeling a sense of belonging, not feeling a sense of connection to other students, but also not having the opportunities even to explore passions, right? And so those were some things that this proposal would offer. And, one of the things that we had talked about was not necessarily just having it be like initiated by staff, but opening it up so students can then like come up with some ideas around what are the people, passions, and projects you might want to, engage in. And then so that might, then that might change the trajectory of who applies for that and how we advertise. So that was a wondering that I had too.
Yeah, and on that end, just like the clubs that you see forming at Tigard High School. I mean, last year we had a bowling club which had 56 students in it, and it just never got because it's it's expensive to pay for that bowling opportunity, so it just didn't really continue. But there's definitely a need for that in the student body.
I'd like to know more about the scope and of responsibility for this role. Would it just be to oversee, or would it be to create a structure around not just a dispersal, but creating a structure and framework for what activities were actually included in this opportunity?
I think that can be discussed if we agree that this is a committee to do it. So as of right now, current reality, the way that it functions is we have some representatives, some student representatives, family representatives, a representative from the business office, some staff representatives as well. How we have tried to relay that information is because the funding source did come from a high school level. We had connected with the high school activities directors, as well as a multicultural, culturally responsive coordinators to share that information with the high school staff to be able to share again with the clubs and so forth. But again, connected to some of that overwhelm, there are some stipulations to the funding. The request is that the proposal needs to include a review of current program and the demographics of who's currently participating and what's your plan to diversify. And so, that takes a little bit of work to come up with a plan and measures for that funding. And so I know that has deterred some applicants because of that level of overwhelm. And so how it has worked is because it's a pilot, we want to see the successes. And so as long as you're applying and you have a plan, we will fund it as long as you respond to the questions that come up from the committee. So they would ask posing questions, to say, how would you recruit like, what is your target demographics? How do you know? You know, some of those equity questions, right? That are necessary. And then from there, if the applicant responds and has a plan, right, that addresses those questions, then they get funded. And then we want to learn more. The good thing about this process is that we did learn from the funding for the marching band that did increase diversity. And there were some really great insights from there. And Owen, I know you were there if you wanted to add anything. But that's so that's the current structure. But you know, depending on what the committee would want to do with that, I think that's the charge of the committee.
And would we be doing that this year? Or would that be something we would start taking on next year? Like, I mean, you mentioned outstanding grants right now, and would we be trying to tackle those now or go into next year?
Well, I think, so what I've learned, and maybe Octavia can share more, but like the spring is typically the time when people do like actually start waking up and asking for some of our equity budget funding and stuff like that. But you know, if the committee agrees that this would be something that you would like to take on, then that's part of my recruitment process. And then I recruited, like, you know, 15 people that could be a part of that committee to review. And then, you know, we might be able to experience as is, but then have that conversation around how you might want to structure it moving forward.
Okay, yeah, because if we do it right now, which I would love to, I just think given what we have on our plate right now, we would probably have to add a meeting for that specifically between now and the end of the year at some point. And so as long as committee members are aware of that and willing to, you know, put in an extra day for something like that, and then work on a structure for next year, would probably be a good idea.
You said how many are pending right now, just two?
The two that's pending is pending. Well, one is actually not funded because it's already passed.
Oh, okay.
The other one is waiting for the applicant to respond back. So there's no new ones right now. And the way that it has worked has been, it's an open-ended time. So anybody can apply at any time. And then once a proposal comes in, the ask is, and it doesn't have to be everybody, the threshold is at least 3 members to review and give feedback. And so that's how we've been able to kind of keep that rolling. So it wouldn't require all of us to sit at once, but that's the structure that we currently have, but that can change because we do have students. And so typically when a proposal comes in, I would alert the committee, and then I would give about a week's or 2 weeks time for them to review and then fill out the scoring form. And then that would be how I would give the feedback back to the applicant. And then they would review and I would structure it. Those are the things I can train and show you all how it works. But that allows for flexibility of time and schedule, as we know that some of the students, you know, are pulled many different ways.
I think I misunderstood. So this is electronic then, like there wouldn't need to be an in-person meeting presentation type situation?
Yes,
Okay.
but we do need to train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understood.
And that was virtual as well. It didn't have to be in person.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a unique opportunity, and it is in the name. But I also think this being a 2-year term, and when I talked about subcommittees earlier, this could certainly fill a role in that. And we have a lot of individuals who could certainly benefit from programs from an equity lens. But I'm not going to make the motion. I will leave that to someone else.
I was just wondering, is this a use it or lose it by a certain date, or do we? And is it something that we can get more money later? Is this a one-time shot of this 100,000? How does this all work?
So the funding currently is every year it's $100,000 start. And then again, as proposals come in, then that depletes that funding. At this moment, and actually tomorrow, we have our integrated planning meeting, and that $100,000 is up for discussion because of the lack of access or people utilizing it. And so that is going to be coming up in our integrated plan as well as a conversation.
You said that there was $50,000 left, but that it was already spoken for the bias training and the 4Cs protocol? Or did I misunderstand?
Can you say that one more time?
I thought you said something about some bias training and the 4Cs protocol, and that some of the funding for that was coming.
No, I think I meant that to be a part of that committee, you would have to go through the bias training as a prerequisite to be on the committee. And so just like with our hiring, we want to make sure that we have a lens towards objectivity for the mission and vision of the funding source, which is at its core is to diversify participation in extracurricular activities, because we know that if students are connected with passion, people, and projects, then they're going to be engaged and connected at school.
I'll make the motion. I think it sounds interesting. I would like to support students if I can. So if other members are for it, I'm up for it.
I'll second that.
Awesome. So a motion was made and it was seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Oh, we do have somebody online. Thank you, Thor.
Well, I've been here.
Is that Michael? Ah,
Yeah, good evening. I've
Oh,
been
I
here.
see that.
thank you, Michael.
Good evening.
Thank you, Michael.
Absolutely.
Michael, is that hand for a question or was that for the eye?
That the hand was for is for an aye and was for a question prior to the vote. The hand was up, and the question was for Zinnia, Director An, and the question was, how is the community informed about the funding opportunity?
Thank you. Yes. So I think this was part of the conversation that we had when we were bringing it up to the board. And I think this is why I wanted to bring it here, is because we were using the current infrastructure for communicating that out. So there are functions and roles within our schools that manage and oversee some of these extracurricular activities. So for instance, at both of the comprehensive high schools, the activities coordinators or directors, I think, are the ones that oversee that. So myself and actually Jarvis and our CFO met with all of our athletic directors as well as our activities coordinators to share that information. We have $100,000 available for funding. Can you share that insight with staff? And I think so that's been one way. And then recently, in overlaying that communication pipeline, we've also shared with our culturally responsive coordinators who also have access to leadership, ASB, that can share some of that information as well. Though I do think that we need to have other ways of communicating, because I don't think it's getting very far. And so looking around here and looking how we can reach out like and have students help with that process would be really helpful, and opening it up to students and their ideas to be able to get funded would be, I think, a really good opportunity. Because I think using the traditional pipeline for communication has not been as fruitful as we had hoped.
Thank
I
you
have a
very
clarifying
much.
question. Can new programs use and apply for that funding as a kickstart, or will it have to be just existing programs?
We were saying we want new ideas because I think those are the things, so it's open. All we are looking for is that you have a lens for, having diverse participation. That's like the main criteria, and having, students be engaged. And so some of the things that came up with some of the students that said, maybe they cannot commit to like an ongoing club, but they could, they have really like the idea of like having some experiences together. Like that type of stuff is also open to. It doesn't have to be like an ongoing thing, but like, momentum can also like increase that engagement as well.
And then is the information on the district website for this grant, or where can people access this information?
I think that's a great point. I know that pay to play, elimination of pay to play was shared through their, the communication through the athletics department. But for this grant, again, trying to find out who do we communicate that with at the local high school level, or do we expand that to like more broader? I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't been like centered on how we communicate that. So again, going back to my thought was, if we brought it to a committee like this, if we can define those things and then kind of lead that. But currently nobody's really leading it. It's more of like, here's the funding available, and through those traditional communication pipelines, seeing if that would make an impact. And obviously we have some data that is not enough. And so I think some of the questions that you're posing today is a really good way for us to then say, here's the plan by which we're gonna support that recruitment process.
And I think just as important as informing students in the community of that this is available is also through the same avenues, talking about the successes. Say, hey, look, we were able to do this. We were able to do this, showing everybody examples of where those funds are going to also help encourage people.
So I think this goes to like, back to what he's saying, where are they gonna access that? Like is there a page for this committee on TTSD website? Because that could be a direct access to those things, so people know where to go to find those type of things and apply for it.
That's a very good question. Good recommendation.
Yeah, that is a good recommendation. I think like when we first got started, I think that was one of the things that Chair Dorsey mentioned, like, is there an opportunity, like I know we have individual emails, but is there like a group, like, if somebody wants to reach out to the EEAC, if they could send us a communication for something like that. Can someone make that set up?
So did we make a decision yet?
Yes, I think we did it backwards. Technically, Robert's rules, we should have had discussion first, but we did all say aye. So the motion did pass, and then we had further discussion.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next topic of conversation was going to be training. And Vice Chair DeGraw and I and Dr. McCall and Director Un, we had a discussion. When you looked at the charge of this committee, it was to be educated in some cases by the district so that we could fulfill the requirements of this committee. And training came up, and we were considering some potential dates and opportunities for training from an equity lens. And Vice Chair DeGraw brought up the summer potentially as a training time period. But we certainly wanted to bring it to the committee as a whole. And once again, the phrase that pays this evening is subcommittee potential, where we could look at some potential dates that works for everyone involved, and get that training that can be so useful. Not only that, it'll increase your skill set outside of this committee, IRL. So, and that's something I'm learning. I'm a bit dated, but I hope I use that right. I'll have to ask the students here. So I put it to the committee, is training on the docket. Is that something we really want to pursue for ourselves? Director Un has said that there are some resources that can be provided to us, some reading and potentially in-person training in a retreat format even potentially. So I put this out to the committee. Yeah, that would be nice. So we can discuss for a moment. We have plenty of time, and then we can move it to a motion if we'd like to move in that direction. So, floor is open for discussion. Any questions?
Yeah, I think like Chair Dorsey said, especially given the amount of work we have to do before the end of the school year, getting training and before the end of the school year might be a little challenging. So hence why, maybe doing something more in depth in the summer. And in previous discussions, it sounded like, similar to how the board does things like that as well. They'll do things that sounds like July would be off limits. July generally is not something that we would do. It would either be June or August. Well, at least for me personally, August would work a little bit better due to soccer stuff. But but that would be the idea, and that it would probably hopefully be like, I don't know, Xenia, what your thoughts are, but like when we're talking about like retreat, like a 2-day thing, 2 or maybe 3-day, like where we would be doing some, in-depth trainings on the tools and protocols that, that we need to use in just overall equity training.
Yes, and we actually have some resources from ODE that just got sent out, and I had shared it with our equity colleagues within our district. But ODE has some modules that we could also braid in with some of our equity protocols, processes, specifically because of the function of this committee. I think just understanding the equity audit process, not just reviewing of the data, but also how do we go about using some of that data, getting more insight and listening to the community, while also connecting with some clear actions for equity. And so I know that I have here the modules that ODE has sent out. Module 1 talks about setting the stage to discuss equity, looking at the different components. Identity is a major part of equity work, and so and bias-based beliefs as well, and how to address that. And then also looking at how identity and bias beliefs impacts decision making. And then how to intervene when things and how to interrupt biases. So those are I think the cluster 1 mode that we would focus on, aligned to some of the equity protocols that we have within our district to mitigate some of those pieces. So as you know, the benefits of a day-long, multi-day-long retreat is that you actually have time to think, reflect, and also connect to how that works within the function of our committee our collective work together.
Yeah, so with that, I mean, open it up again for discussion or for, people to make a motion for, yeah, let's do a training, let's do a retreat sometime in August or summer. Again, I'm set my mind for August, my apologies. But and like Chair Dorsey said, we would probably be looking for, a subcommittee, to try and, help set this up, identify a date and work together to set this up.
Michael, were you clearing your throat or did you have a question?
I have a question, a comment actually, both. So I think that I appreciate everything that's being said by Director An. I think the training and equity is a great idea. I think the retreat is a great idea. I guess in terms of the subcommittee, that's probably a subcommittee I would want to be a part of. I live out of state. I live in a different state. So planning for that would be really important for me in terms, because I would want to be present for something like that. I wouldn't want that to be virtual. I would want to be there for something like that. So that would be a subcommittee. Once we put this to a vote, if the vote passes, that would be a subcommittee that I would be interested in.
And I do want to highlight that, Mr. Braxton has also participated as a facilitator for some of the training that we've offered within our district. So I think that would be a really good fit.
This may have came up, but I'm kind of thinking about our students. Like how are they thought about in this process when we're thinking about August and things like that, like especially ones who are probably graduating. So like, have we thought about what that looks like for those folks?
Yeah, that was a discussion that we took on. We were talking about the term of this committee. We mentioned the 2-year aspect, and I think the student aspect of that discussion was potentially put on the parking lot for that moment. But that's an excellent point.
Yeah, I mean, my hope would be that, even outgoing students would be able to be included. I mean, again, I believe that the education and training you can get from it is beneficial even outside of this committee. So I would hope that students would be able to attend if they were able to.
And this might be a bit of a side conversation now brought to the center, is that, I wonder also when we talk about the 2-year term, how do we start recruiting and sharing this now for students upcoming? And because that, again, going back to that was the stuck point that I had when we were doing the EEFC, was that there were students that were actively involved, but then, they graduated and then they were gone. That was how we got stuck, not with the recruitment process. So I hope that we can think about that for the committee, knowing that there is a 2-year term. So, reaching out to your peers, who are sophomores, right, even to be able to participate would be ideal. And, we'll talk through our equity and inclusion department, affinity alliance groups as well, but it would be important to share that opportunity with students soon.
I have a clarifying question about the 2-year term. If you're someone on the EASH committee, does that still carry over, or is it starting from when the EAC committee was formed?
Good question.
Great question. It was my understanding that when this equity committee was formed, that would be the beginning of that term, given the role of how we chose to adopt what we were doing in the EASH even though some were in the east are not a part of it.
Sounds good, thank you.
I'm open to further clarification.
That's my understanding too,
Okay.
is that it would be starting with the EEA.
Any other comments or questions? Anyone want to raise a motion?
I will motion to have an in-depth training during the summer. If anybody wants to second that.
A second.
All right, both Marta and Michael seconded. Awesome. And thirded. Cool. And then we can work offline and via emails and follow up in future meetings as far as subcommittee members. Mr. Braxton, we will definitely have you on that to help set that up.
Great.
Okay, next we're going to talk about the committee email addresses. I know some emails were sent out to you all. We want to make sure everyone has a TTSD email address so that we can begin sharing documents in a singular location where everyone has access to the resources that we have been sharing prior to the email chains that we've been attaching documents to. So this is really wonderful, and I'm going to pass it over to Director Un for more details.
And I'm hoping to pass to our expert, Patty Roberts.
Also, whatever Owen just sent a while ago, I don't know where it is. Where does it go to? Is that something we will get through this? Whatever.
email?
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, because it's like, it's not on mine, I don't know. Okay. So I have the email account set up for the committee members that don't have a TTSD email. Students, your emails will work, and employees, your emails will work. So I have the, our tech department sent them all up. I will send you out each an email tomorrow. And with your email address, and maybe if I can get a cell phone number, I can text you the password because I don't want to put both in the email. And then also there's, the district now has a two-step verification so that, you know, employees know what that is. Right, you have to have your phone and say, yes, it's really me, I'm not a robot. And so those will be set up, they're set up now. I will send you out the email tomorrow so you can log in and all will be well. And it's just regular old email, no frills, no thrills.
And I think what my ask would be, once you have your email, you're logged in, maybe send me an email with your new email from your new email, and then I can add you to our shared Google Drive and all those other pieces where we can start dropping all of the documents that we've had together in there so that we can have access to that when we're together.
Can I still use my email you have for invites to these meetings? Because, well, I will check that prior to the meeting to go over data. I have lots of emails. I'm worried I'll miss some information.
And if you'd like, I will send the invitations to your new, or to the TTSD emails, if that's what everybody wants. And I can send it to both. So
my
it's on
worry.
both calendars, yeah. Okay, I'll do that. I know.
Patty, before you leave the table, regarding TTSD resources like electronic devices. Could you speak to that?
Yes. So for those of you that would need a laptop, Mac or PC, we do have those available. If you don't have one, students, I think you use your district issue. Oh, you're using your personal? Okay. Oh, okay. So if anyone needs a laptop, please let us know. And you can let me know, Zinnia know, Dr. McCall know, and we can make that happen for you.
We just have per policy, have to fill out like a technology use form. And then I think the benefit also, like we talked about earlier, I know that there have been some personal computers that were used but had trouble accessing the internet or like Wi-Fi. So, you know, that's another access barrier that can be eliminated as well.
I just also add, if you have a district-owned like laptop that, if you use that, it's for district use, just know that if there's anything that comes up, if we need to do like a records request, it would be on your district provided device.
Any other questions? All right, thanks, Patty. Okay, and now I sent out an email about reviewing the EASH updates and themes and making sure everybody had a chance to review that Q1 data. I hope we all had an opportunity for that. And I will pass it over to Director Un for leading that discussion.
So did everybody get a chance to see that? I wonder if we can hold just a few minutes for those. I see folks have that up. I was thinking that since we had talked about using first thought, second thought, we might just take a moment to review those slides and for the updates, and we'll just go around and what was something that was resonating for you from the presentation around Q1 data and or the slide deck for the each updates. Does that work? So if we hold, let's say 4 minutes, because I know that you already had taken a look at it, but just to refresh your memory, what is one thing that you want to lift up to share with the group per the data and or the slide? Yeah, for either one is fine. And then be ready to share why that was resonating for you and why you want to bring that up to the group. So you have 4 minutes. That is not supposed to be linked to anyone.
Okay.
It's just a template.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that is the 4 minutes. Is there somebody that would like to start us off? Just first thoughts. What's something that's resonating for you that you want to bring up to the group? Okay.
My first thought, I thought it was interesting that the location of the bullying and harassment incidents mostly occurred within the classroom. And I thought from a teacher's perspective, because we, put our best effort in curating classroom environments that are really positive, and a lot of conflicts, in my perspective, happen on the bus or on the playground or during unstructured time. So I thought that was really interesting, and I might be jumping ahead, but it makes me wonder when those incidents happen and after the fact, if restorative practices are put into place for the students and for the teachers themselves. So that's where my mind was headed with that.
What really is like shocking to me is that I was looking at like just comparing the bullying and harassment data from the elementary level, comparing it to the high school level. And I think it's so crazy that there have been more reports at the elementary level than the high school level, especially in sexual orientation, when there's been 17 reports from the elementary level. And at the high school level, there's only been, let's see, what was it? It was 7.
And this is quarter 1. We're still waiting. We're a little bit behind on quarter 2. But yeah, I think that's a really good point. Next.
I had the same first thought about the classroom, and then the feedback and insights where the administrators and teachers said they didn't have the skill set, which then I made the connection, if they don't have the skill set and it's happening in the classroom, how are we helping our students?
So I've had a chance to see this data a number of times, and for the category for quarter 1, a high incidence of racial incidents. And I take that to mean that could be inclusive of hate speech. And that's a high number, even though it's not the highest. The other one, bullying, and it just lists other, but that definitely stood out to me, considering we have a process set when incidents happen. School teams have a plan as outlined in the slides on when an incident happens. This is what needs to, you investigate it. But again, it's still a high number, 44.
I think my first thoughts are along the lines of thinking about where they're happening in the classrooms. And I guess my mind is kind of going to like, not necessarily like that's where it's happening, but that's where most like our teachers have gotten the training to know that those are incidents. And in these spaces, like in the like for recess or in the cafeteria, a lot of those staff members don't have that training, so they don't know to report those things. So that's kind of what my first thoughts are going to.
The first two comments were the first two I had thought about also, but in when Henry was talking about elementary school being so high in the sexual orientation, it's like, you know, when you're a little kid, you get a new word and you have no idea what it means, but obviously it's something shocking, so you say it. Whereas when they're older, they know what these are, so it's just not that important to them. But middle school, I think, is the toughest of anything. They can be so mean to one another. And it shows with the harassment at the highest in the middle school. So that's what I come out with.
The thing that I noticed when I was looking at the data is I was kind of comparing the elementary, middle school, and high school, the percentage of students enrolled compared to the percentage of referrals, especially in regards to how they identify. And we would hope to see that the percentage of students enrolled and the percentage of students getting referrals are going to be somewhat even, right? And when I was looking, especially when I looked at the Native Hawaiian, I was surprised to see that at elementary, it was, you know, pretty comparable, 2.4 compared to 3.1. Same thing with middle school, 2.2 and 3.9. But then when I looked at high school, it went from 2.3% of Native Hawaiians enrolled to 13% of referrals. And that just seemed like a very large jump. And it made me made me wonder what happened from elementary to middle to high school that we would maybe not being as supportive of those students, like we seem to be, at least according to the data in the past. So what changed for them in high school? It's just my wondering.
One thing I really saw was the jump in racial harassment incidents from elementary to middle school. It goes from, just off numbers, it goes from 8 to like 30 or some pretty high number. And that beats out every other category besides the other in the middle school group, which is like 5 or 6 times more than the next, sexual orientation with 4. I was just I don't really see where that would take place. It looks pretty odd to me.
Something that stood out, and I'm using another document too, which is the superintendent presentation. But in Q1, there were 227 referrals, and of those 227, sorry, I have too many tabs open. Of those 227, 194 were ish referrals. And I just I'm shocked by how high that number is, and scale it compared to other years before, where it's been in 2018, 2019, it's been 249 referrals for the whole year. And right now we're at 227 for just Q1.
Before I go, Michael, do you want to go next?
Hold on, is my microphone? Okay, my microphone is, oh, there we go. Yeah, sorry. So if I may just comment briefly on, so what really struck me was the feedback and insights, really. The two comments Families share that they don't have confidence in staff and administrators to address incidents with a racially and culturally responsive lens, and staff of color, which I really don't like that term because, like, again, I just feel like the experience of African Americans is unlike any other group. So, like, when you lump, I just have a problem with that term just individually. But staff of color feel excluded and responsible for being the safe person for the students in schools while they don't feel heard, valued, safe, or respected themselves. So interestingly, when you read the other feedback and insights, they're just, we really like the training opportunities, that are forthcoming are just that much more, I think, necessary because there's just this apparent ongoing disconnect with it between administration, families and staff. It's interesting because, not to take too much more time, I was watching, some of you may have heard of this gentleman called Bill Maher. He has a show, and Bernie Sanders was on the show just within the last week, and they used the term equity and inequality during the show. And Bernie Sanders, who ran for president, admitted on TV that he didn't know what equity meant. And I was flabbergasted, in terms of just how much work that we've done and just how much farther we have to go. Right. So when we talk about that just from a national level and bringing that to a local level and just so much further and how necessary and important this work is. And I just really, want to say lastly that I really appreciate each and every one of you for taking the time to do this work because it's just that important.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I noticed as well, like the large amount of incidents that were in the classroom. And I was then looking at the off-campus and other categories. And while I know this would probably be more applicable, well, no, I guess it would be applicable in middle school. I'm just wondering if there's anything regarding social media that would fall under here as well, like harassment on social media, and what category so would that be the off-campus or the other location?
Is that the, I was gonna ask that same thing, but is that the media one that it's highlighted? It says, I'll just say like, where is it? Is it
At least on the
highlighted in
chart in the first page, I just see.
It's a written or electronic.
Yes.
version.
Is that it?
I would say.
Gotcha. Oh, gotcha. Oh, I see. And the actual data. Gotcha. And then as far as the update slides go, I was just wondering, like, my understanding was that was presented to school administrators. And so I'm just wondering, when does it get to the next level, like the rest of the staff and the teachers, and how does that training cascade down to them as far as these types of updates to Synergy and whatnot? Even though I understand they may not be the ones entering it in. But.
And like many of you, I was looking at where the bullying and harassment takes place in the classroom. And that was a huge shock for me. But, as Marta had mentioned, it could be, or I'm sorry, as Celeste had mentioned, it could be that the instructors don't know how they've made it known they don't know how to deal with this sort of activity and behavior. So that probably does play a role in the proliferation of such behaviors in the classroom. The other thing that jumped out at me was the other category, the very high numbers in the other category. And I'm curious if we had any further information that could break down the other category into subcategories so that we could see just how those numbers are apportioned in the other category. And if that is available, I would love to see it.
So as part of the EASH update in the slide deck, as you know, from the EASH committee, the number one recommendation was to get accurate data. And so it took a little bit of time to kind of tease that apart because a lot of these bullying harassment connected to identity markers are then forwarded to the Civil Rights Office. And so part of that, we needed to make sure that the reporting doesn't get impacted if we created different pathways for that, because the others category, what we found out is in the slide decks, slide 20 is where these are some very specific things that have occurred that we had to put in other, because in Synergy, you have to have an originator and a victim to be accounted for under bullying harassment. And so if you notice here that the pathway now, we've created a new pathway to track bias incidents and hate speech. So the next time that we get a report, it'll actually be, we won't have as many others because it'll be highlighted in this flow chart. So when there's a known originator, so the minor is for the elementary school. So a lot of the times, much of the incidences occur around like microaggressions and like, exclusion. And then you have the known originator, which are more connected to hate speech, assaults, and so forth. And then the unknown originator, when it happens within the hallway and nobody can pinpoint who the originator is, or you don't have an actual victim because it was not said or directed to anybody. And so that's why they got categorized under other, but now with this flow chart, you'll have a little bit more clarity about when and where and how those incidences occur. And so as the question here that you had asked Vice Chair DeGraw was, what do we know about who the next level of support is? The campaign and the support that we did within our retreat was the idea of stop, support, and report. So those are the things that we trained around. And so the reporting component, you're seeing an escalation of that because people are now more trained on how to report. And so you'll start seeing some of those things. And so when we talk about each data, what we want to start looking at is not necessarily how many there are, but how many are repeat versus not. And so I think those are the ways in which we need to start taking a look at data in that sense. And hopefully you'll hear that during our roundtable. But I also want to be thoughtful of time. We are at 8:11.
Yeah, I wanted to kind of speak to that because I know that kind of makes people feel like, oh my God, there's a lot there. And I want to bring up around that, we're training the people to report, and there should be more reports if people are learning how to do those things. I think what you would want to look at is if there are low reports, because that's going to show that maybe they're not doing that work around the training and letting folks know what we're standing on and those type of things. So I think we have to kind of switch our minds around what we're actually looking for. Because if we see a lot of low numbers, then that's what they're probably tweaking it a little bit so that they don't have to get those high numbers.
Right, and I would also think we would have to, while I know it's a little bit challenging, but that's the school reported data. We would also need to compare that to, student voice data too. Like, is this data saying what we're hearing from students? Is this data matching what the community is also saying?
So that's what also resonated with me, some of the low numbers, and it does, and I was looking at some of the statements, because we need both the quantitative, that's the referrals, and we need to look at the qualitative, which is, those are the narratives. Those are the surveys where students and also staff report, either a staff report, maybe I didn't notice, or I didn't know what to do, or a student says, maybe I reported and there wasn't anything followed up. So both, I think it's important to get a more comprehensive picture of really what's going on in the school.
I have a point of clarification, I guess, on the slides for the each update. Slides 14 through 19 have problems and solutions. Are the solutions already things that have occurred or what we hope are going to occur to solve the problems?
So the problem is within the reporting, right? So this is the new system that we're using. So the problem highlight there was, yeah, so the solution is what's being done right now. So this is the system, yeah, so you'll see a different, you'll see more accurate data. And I think this was at our last session, which I think was last February, so in February. So like after the second term into the second semester is when we'll get the more accurate data connected to the elimination of the other category because of those other the specific categories from that flow chart.
All right, I just want to be mindful of the time. It's 8:14. And I want to open the table for any last comments, any other information that you feel needs to be imparted to the council. Please speak now.
Yeah, no, I just think the last agenda item, just talking about the updating of the policy, we'll just table that, or that probably won't happen until pretty much the end of the school year once we've done that type of stuff.
Anyone else? All right. Michael, thank you once again for joining remotely. Really appreciate your input and insights. And all of you, thank you. This is really important work that we're doing. We continue to unveil more opportunities for us to get involved and bring to the light what is previously been hidden. And I'm going to be sending out an email with a form for different subcommittees you all can join, and we'll discuss even further through our emails and online correspondence. All right. With that, we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you.